Welcome, everyone. I now call the April 8th, 2025 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point, we'll take a moment to take roll of the council members by position number. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name.
Thank you. Councilmember Zorns. Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Aldorks.
Here.
Councilmember Kurd.
Here.
Councilmember Menke.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra.
Here.
All present with the exception of Councilmember Zorns, who's absent and excused.
Thank you. Before we continue with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to reiterate some guidelines. For remote meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently and mute your microphone when not speaking. First up on the agenda is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Mayor, City Manager Kyle Stannert here. While you do not need to amend the agenda for this, I just want to note for council that there will be 2 letters for consideration of support that I'll bring up under the City Manager's report item tonight. You'll have copies at the dais, but just for those who are watching the meeting, wanted to put that on the record that we'll be I'll be asking for your concurrence.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move to public engagement opportunities. We have the Bothell Police Touch a Truck. Kids of all ages are invited to see and touch a patrol vehicle and a traffic motorcycle. This is a sensory-friendly event and no sirens or other loud noises will be demonstrated. It's going to be on Wednesday, April 9th from 11 to 12:30 in the afternoon at the police station parking lot. We also have the Bothell Police Community Academy. You can go behind the scenes with Bothell Police. It's packed with activities, tours, and opportunities to ask officers your questions. It's Thursday evenings from April 24th to June 12th. All right, we have, I'm sorry. Oh, look at that, there's more. Free container gardening workshop on April 23rd from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Bothell Operations Center. You can join the Snohomish Conservation District for a free DIY workshop to learn how to grow, care for, and harvest edible plants in small containers. All materials are provided. And then there's the Earth Day volunteer event, April 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the former Wayne Golf Course. You can volunteer to help restore salmon habitat with Whale Scout by removing invasive plants in the front 9 of Bothell's largest park. Now, we can move on to proclamations.
There was a proposal to read it in Arabic. I'm not going to do that. So this is a proclamation for the Arab American Heritage Month. Whereas Arab American Heritage Month is recognized across the country every April to celebrate the rich heritage and numerous achievements of Arab Americans who have roots in Southwest Asia and North Africa. And whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to virtually every aspect of American society in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, military service, and culture. And whereas, since migrating to the United States, people of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends. And whereas they brought with them their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed that have added to the rich tapestry of our Bothell community. And whereas Arab Americans continue to face civil rights abuses, harmful stereotyping and bullying, which must be combated through education and awareness, and we encourage all Bothell community members to join us in educating ourselves and bringing awareness to these issues. Now, therefore, I, Rami Alcabra, on behalf of Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Arab American Heritage Month in the City of Bothell and join in honoring and celebrating the many Arab American community members who contribute to our beloved Bothell community. And here to accept is my good friend Mona Atallah, who's also a fellow Bothell resident.
Respected Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members, thank you for recognizing April as Arab American Heritage Month. On behalf of the Arab community, I'm honored to accept this proclamation. Arabs are a vibrant part of this city's fabric. We are engineers, teachers, doctors, artists, business owners, students, neighbors. We come from a rich mosaic of backgrounds, traditions, and religions. We are united by shared values of family, hospitality, hard work, and a deep love for our community. We have contributed to this country, to this city for generations, often quietly, sometimes in the face of misunderstanding or injustice, but always with resilience and with pride. This month is a chance to celebrate Arab American culture, language, and history, and our individual stories. In the spirit of sharing stories, we invite you to engage and learn more. Join us at this year's Arab Festival this summer at the Seattle Center. Attend our cultural events by subscribing to our local events calendar, arabishway.com. Engage in local Arab groups by attending events in your schools, in your workplaces, and read stories in books from your local library. In honoring Arab American Heritage Month, you are recognizing not just the legacy of our ancestors, but the dreams of our children. I have my two here today with me. And helping build a community where everybody belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to get a picture? All right. All right, we have one more proclamation tonight for Vaisakhi and Khalsa Day. Whereas Vaisakhi is one of the most significant celebrations in the Sikh calendar, marking both the Harvest Festival and the establishment of the Khalsa in 1699 by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, a pivotal moment in Sikh history that symbolizes sovereignty, justice, and devotion. And whereas the creature of the Khalsa represents a commitment to truth, equality, and the protection of the vulnerable, embodying values that transcend time and inspire individuals to uphold justice and dignity for all. And whereas Vaisakhi is a day of reflection for Sikhs worldwide, serving as an opportunity to recommit to the principles of Sikhism, including selfishness, selflessness, courage, and community service, while celebrating the vibrant heritage and contributions of Sikh communities. And whereas this day also highlights the importance of unity and resilience, reminding us of the sacrifices made by Sikh leaders and communities throughout history to protect their faith and identity, and serves as a reminder of the enduring spirit of Vaisakhi and the Khalsa's commitment to justice, equality, and humanity. Now, therefore, I, Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim April 13th as Vaisakhi and Khalsa Day in Bothell, and encourage all residents to join in recognizing this important occasion by learning about Sikh history, participating in community celebrations, and fostering understanding and respect for diverse cultures. And we've got someone here to accept, I'm guessing.
Thank you, sir. First of all, thank you, Mayor Thompson and council members for having us here. And it's a great opportunity for the kids who have a spring break and come and see how the council sits and do their daily, every weekly meetings. Thank you for having us. So as first of all, I want to invite you on April 13th at Bothell Sikh Temple, where we are having a Vaisakhi celebration. We are going to have a big event, festives, and we have free food. Besides that, if you're busy on that day, you are welcome to come on any Sunday from 9 to 1 p.m. You're welcome. Any faith, any anyone who needs any help is welcome at a Sikh temple. And the people you're looking here are all the volunteers. Anytime you need, anywhere, any humanity work, we are there. That's our belief. We are here to serve, and this is the beautiful nation, greatest nation in the world, United States of America, which gave us work, opportunity, freedom, justice, and equality, the reason we came to this country. So now we have few kids who will speak up on Vaisakhi. And please give us some time to let them speak. Thank you. Noor?
Also, if you're out in the other room, we know that sometimes kids make noise, and kids are welcome here. So don't worry about it.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is a traditional Sikh greeting, meaning the Khalsa belongs to God, and so does victory. Dear Sangat Ji, honorable guests, respected community members, and friends, thank you for joining us today as we celebrate Vaisakhi, one of the most meaningful festivals in the Sikh faith. Vaisakhi is not only a celebration of the spring harvest, it also commemorates the birth of the Khalsa in 1699 by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. On this day, Sikhs around the world reflect on the values of courage, equality, and service, principles that are all the foundation of our faith and the soul of the Khalsa. It is my honor to begin today's presentation by sharing the story and teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of Sikhism. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, a legacy of truth and compassion. Guru Nanak Dev Ji was born in 1469 in Talwandi, now known as Nankana Sahib, in present-day Pakistan. Even as a child, he challenged social norms and questioned unfair traditions. He believed in one universal creator and emphasized that all human beings are equal, regardless of religion, caste, or status and skin color. To spread this message, Guru Nanak Dev Ji traveled across India, Tibet, Mecca, and even Baghdad, teaching people to live with honesty, humility, and devotion. His teachings were recorded and later compiled into the Guru Granth Sahib, the living scripture of Sikhism. Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught us to live by 3 guiding principles. Nam Japna, meditate on God's name and live with gratitude. Kirat Karni, earn an honest living through hard work. Van Shakna, share what you have with others, especially those in need. He stood firmly against inequality and social injustice. He declared, "Na koi Hindu, na koi Musliman," meaning that humanity is one. He uplifted the status of women in society by saying, "So kyo manda akiye jit jamme rajan," meaning, why call the woman inferior from whom kings are born? Guru Nanak Dev Ji's teachings are not just for Sikhs, but for the whole world. Even today, they guide us to live with love, truth, and kindness. Gurdwaras follow his teachings by offering free langar, food, to everyone, no matter who they are. As his followers, we must practice honesty, equality, and selfless service every day. May we always walk on the path shown by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
The Sikh faith was shaped by 10 spiritual leaders known as the Gurus, who passed down timeless teachings over centuries. These teachings were later compiled into the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the eternal guide for Sikhs. At a time when society was steeped in rituals, inequality, and oppression, the Sikh Gurus advocated for universal human rights, dignity, and connection with the divine. A pivotal moment in Sikh history came when the 9th Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, gave his life to protect religious freedom. He was executed by the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb for refusing to convert to Islam. His stand for justice is a reminder that faith and freedom go hand in hand. Inspired by this sacrifice, his son, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the 10th and final human Guru, created the Khalsa, a spiritual brotherhood committed to upholding justice, equality, and faith. Inspired by this sacrifice, his son, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, created a Vaisakhi in 1699, where he invited Sikhs to take part in a new path of courage and commitment through the ceremony of Amrit Sanchar. The first members of the Khalsa were initiated. He also introduced the 5 Ks, symbols that Sikhs wear as a commitment to their beliefs. Kes, uncut hair, respect for God's creations. Ganga, wooden comb, cleanliness and order. Gada, steel bracelet, a reminder to act with honor. Kirpan, ceremonial sword, commitment to justice and protection. Gachera, modest undergarments, self-discipline and integrity. The Khalsa represents not only spiritual identity, but also the resolve to defend human rights and dignity. Thank you.
Vaisakhi is a special festival celebrated by many people, especially Sikhs, to mark the beginning of the harvest season. It's time for families and communities to come together. Special prayers. On Vaisakhi, Sikhs gather at Gurdwaras, Sikh temples, to pray and listen to the Guru Granth Sahib, Sikh holy book. They recite special prayers, sing devotional songs called Kirtan, and reflect on the teachings of the Gurus. Processions, Nagar Kirtans. In many places, large processions take place. People walk together singing religious hymns and prayers, often while carrying the Guru Granth Sahib. Feasting. After prayers and processions, families and communities gather to share food served as langar, which is a free meal served at gurdwaras for everyone, no matter who they are. Feasting. After prayers and procession, remembering the Khalsa. Vaisakhi is also a day when, in 1699, Guru Gobind Singh Ji founded the Khalsa. On this day, Sikhs remember the importance of this event and the values of courage, unity, and selflessness. Wearing a turban. Sikhs wear a turban to show respect to God. The turban is a symbol of strength, honor, and equality. It helps protect the long hair that Sikhs keep as a way of showing respect for their bodies, as they believe that God created them perfect the way they are. Keeping hair long. Sikhs keep their hair long because they believe that God created their bodies perfectly, so they should not change it by cutting their hair, but by keeping their hair natural. Sikhs show respect for God's creation and remind themselves to stay humble and be thankful for what they have. Carrying a kirpan. The kirpan is a small sword or knife that Sikhs carry as a reminder to always stand up for what is right and protect people from harm. It is not used for fighting, but it's a symbol of courage and justice. It reminds Sikhs to defend the truth and help those who are in need.
Hello, everyone. In today's world, where division and hardship can feel overwhelming, Sikhism calls us back to the values of compassion, equality, and service. Sikhs believe in seva, selfless service, as a way to uplift humanity. Whether it's feeding the hungry, helping during disasters, or volunteering at shelters, Sikhs strive to serve wherever there's need. One of the most powerful examples is langar, the free community kitchen at every gurdwara. During times of crisis like wildfires, floods, or the pandemic, Sikhs across the globe organize huge efforts to provide food and aid without expecting anything in return. Sikhism teaches us to see God in every being and to treat each individual with dignity, fairness, and love. We invite you to celebrate. On behalf of the Sikh community, we warmly invite you to continue the celebration with us at the Sikh Center of Seattle on coming Sunday, April 13th. Come experience Vaisakhi festivities, enjoy langar, and explore our faith and culture through a welcoming guided tour. If you're interested, simply request a tour at the Gurdwara Sahib Temple lobby after arrival. We would be honored to host you. Thank you for your presence, your attention, and your openness to learning and celebrating with us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. And once again, happy Vaisakhi to all.
Can we picture?
Yes.
Recording stopped.
Hunch. Yeah, we'll take it at the end.
All right, next up is public
Recording
comment.
in progress.
Somebody was on it. The city has accepted public comment in writing as well as accepted sign-ups for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. City clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. We received a number of written comments, so I'm going to go over those first before we call on live speakers this evening. We received a written comment from Sarah Snyder regarding the commercial development in residential areas, reduced parking allowances and reductions in setbacks. Micah Campbell regarding the proposed resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. Lauren Davies wrote in regarding the proposed resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. We received 6 from Bothell Citizen regarding the LGBTQ proposal. Chuck Goodwin wrote in regarding the proposed resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. And Felicia Walker also wrote in regarding the proposed resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. Now I'm going to call on the people that signed up to speak. And then I will call on members who might be in the audience that did not sign up. So first we'll call on the signups. I have Michael Kreft. Is Michael Kreft here? Micah? Please step to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes once you get up there. And while he's walking up there, I will let people know that public comments shall be limited to the topics concerning current, future, or requested city projects, actions, programs, plans, and regulations. Comments that are not germane to these subject matters may result in the speaker's comments being suspended. When your 3 minutes start, the light at the dais will turn green. At 1 minute left, it will start blinking, and at 30 seconds, it will turn yellow. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Press that button right there on the mic at the bottom. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to state my position on the resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. This is not easy for me to say, but I think it has to be said. I do stand against the passage of this resolution for 2 reasons. The first being, I believe that this resolution is, while very possibly right-hearted, I think it's wrong-headed. There are people that genuinely believe that they are born in the wrong body, or that genuinely feel attracted to the opposite sex. However, I think a resolution such as this is not the correct solution to the problem that we're facing. There are people, like I said, that face these problems, but the problem is not fixed by affirming these behaviors. It's by actually addressing the root cause of the behavior itself. Passing a resolution to try to welcome these people into our communities is like having a parent tell their toddler that it's okay that they just soiled their diaper, and telling them that it's okay to just keep living life that way, instead of actually helping them change and be able to be what we would call potty training, try to help them move past that problem and be able to live life apart from that issue. So the fact of the matter is that there are people that do experience these problems in our city, but the problems are not to be fixed by just affirming them, telling them that the problem is okay to have the problem and smoothing it over in that way. I think the real way to fix this problem is to actually address those feelings and those desires that people are dealing with. The second reason, which is kind of tied into the first reason as to how I believe this should be fixed as opposed to passing a resolution like this, is that passing a resolution and taking this stance as a community is detrimental to the health of the community. Basically, because God created people as either male or female at birth. That's the way it's been since the beginning of creation. Any deviation from that order is a rebellion of the way that God created things to be, and when we rebel from the way that God created things to be, that puts us in a really bad position, because now we're going against the natural plan that God has for things. I'm 19 years old. I lived in Bothell 17 of those years, And quite honestly, I'm sure I'm not the only one that would not want to raise a family in a city that promotes and displays things like drag shows. I want Bothell to be a place where problems are dealt with, not just smoothed over and ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Kraft.
Okay, it's already on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Mayor and council members. As I read the resolution about Bothell becoming an affirming place, much of the language I saw in support of this measure has been couched in terms that express desires common to both sides of the issue. Dignity, safety, freedom, equality, etc. I affirm all these values as I hold them to be not only fundamental to the American experience, but the birthright of every human being, just as our Declaration of Independence says about this self-evident truth, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. On its face, this measure would seem to fall within the umbrella of the pursuit of happiness, but a more careful reading will show that what is actually sought here is the normalization, promotion, public celebration, and forced affirmation of confusion, delusion, and the perversion of God's perfect design for human sexuality. Namely, that in the beginning, God created the male and female, the two shall become one flesh. Why would you shake your fist in the face of the living God by proposing such a measure? Do you honestly think it compassionate to affirm a lie and to mandate that others do the same? Do you think it loving to encourage a mentally ill person to chemically or surgically mutilate himself? I submit that this is the opposite of compassion and the negation of love. It is wickedness on the level of a man who sees his neighbor's house on fire in the middle of the night and refuses to warn him because he doesn't want to disturb his neighbor's slumber. I urge you, council members and supporters of this measure, wake up. Your house is on fire. Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. But the good news is that you may be washed of your sins and made right in the sight of God by calling on the Lord Jesus Christ to save you. My prayer for you is that he will open your eyes and grant you repentance unto eternal life. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Micah Campbell.
Mayor Thompson, Deputy Mayor Halcabra, and City Council members, thank you for once again giving us the opportunity to speak. Tonight, I would like to discuss the resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community for transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse people. I would like to encourage you to reject this resolution for 4 reasons. First, I do understand that gender dysphoria can be very difficult for people. People sometimes believe that they as a person were born fundamentally flawed. However, each person's body is just right the way they were born. Therefore, this resolution will harm, not help, them by fostering the lie that they were born in the wrong body. It is a scientific fact that females have 2 X chromosomes, while males have only 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. Changing your skin does not change your genetic makeup. Rather, we need to help people to understand that there is hope and freedom in recognizing that they are special, just the way God created them. Second, the resolution says, quote, all LGBTQIA+ individuals shall not be subjected to policies or legislation seeking to legally redefine gender in ways that erase trans and non-binary people, end quote. Biologically, there are only male and female, that being understood by the genetic makeup of a person, which cannot be changed. As such, people cannot truly change their gender neither is it possible to not even have a gender. Third, among other things, the resolution says that the city, quote, further affirms its values by supporting Washington state law providing that all LGBTQIA plus individuals have the right to express their identities freely through speech, dress, art, and performance, including drag and queer cultural expressions, end quote. To put it simply, drag performances are inappropriate. Young children ought not to be sexualized and groomed by viewing such inappropriate sights and behavior. Fourth and finally, the resolution says, quote, the city of Bothell will support LGBTQIA plus events, educational programs, and cultural celebrations year-round, end quote. It is not the city's job to support a certain creed. Neither is it acceptable to support one type of lifestyle over another one. As such, this resolution clearly oversteps the role of government. With such concerns, I urge you to reject this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Luke Campbell.
Mayor Thompson, Deputy Mayor Alcabra, and Bothell City Council members, thank you for your service and for listening to our comments tonight. This evening, I am planning to address the resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community for transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse people. We can all agree that these issues call for compassion for those involved. True kindness supports the long-term health and well-being of every individual. Additionally, kindness does not come at the expense of truth. The question then is, what is the way to be compassionate to individuals with gender dysphoria or a related issue? There are at least two common answers, both of which involve some form of affirmation. One approach, which this resolution takes, is to affirm the mental and emotional state of one in such a condition, even to the extent of supporting drastic physical changes such as transition surgery. However, this approach does not necessarily address the deeper issues. Also, because the mind and emotions can change, many who have undergone attempted transition have regretted it later. There is another answer to the question of how to be most compassionate, which is to affirm the wonderful and unchanging way individuals were created. This approach recognizes an individual's gender dysphoria and works through it. This approach gives such an individual encouragement and assurance that, while each person is different, all have been made gloriously and do not have the wrong body. Thus, permanent physical damage is avoided and emotional stability can be achieved. This type of approach has helped many persons with gender confusion to find peace, health, and satisfaction. In conclusion, the need for true love and compassion is a major reason to oppose the resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Chuck Goodwin.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Chuck Goodwin. I'm married to Lynn for 48 years, and together we raised our 3 children in our Bothell home, where we have lived since 1991. After 33 years, I still love my neighbors, and I love my community. I served as Bothell Police and Fire Chaplain for over 19 years, where I was recognized assisting first responders and citizens in times of crisis and tragedy, earning a Medal of Distinguished Service and 2 Exceptional Service Awards. I served individuals and families of all races, creeds, and colors, including LGBT individuals without distinction of who they are. Vocationally, I served as Safety and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for Shoreline School District, where I was respected for my dedication to the safety of students and staff from natural and man-made disasters and emergencies. Here again, I served 15 schools made up of all races, colors, and creeds, and LGBTQ individuals, and I served their safety needs without making a distinction of who they were. Today, I wish to make an observation about the resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community for transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse people. This resolution identifies, quote, nationwide attacks, end quote, on LGBTQIA+ individuals that, quote, pose a urgent and immediate harm on that group. My observation from my experiences in crisis, emergency, and disaster response is that what is often overlooked in creating a plan of action or policy is not paying close enough attention to the short-term versus long-term cascading impacts of each action in the plan of action. For example, this resolution fails to address the tension of two sexes, male and female, that both faith and science support, versus the ever-growing number of gender identities, which even psychologists are hard-pressed to agree on the actual number, which 65% of Americans believe that there are only two sexes and two gender identities, NBC News poll, June 8, 2023. In taking such a strong stand to protect the relatively small percent of Bothell population, this, given actual numbers for Bothell are difficult to find. To support this, in 2019, the state of Washington was reported to have 5.2% LGBT population, see Williams Institute study from UCLA. In any event, the question needs to be asked if this resolution is adopted today, what will be the cascading impacts upon Bothell residents, students, employees who make up the vast majority of our citizens?
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Your time's
Thank
up.
you.
I'm going to call on people in the audience first that may wish to speak. So if you haven't signed up but do wish to speak, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. And then I will call on those in the virtual audience. Thank you.
Um, 3 minutes, okay. Mayor and council members, thank you for having me here today. My name is Aspen Richter. I'm here to speak on the resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community. I am a member of the Eastside LGBTQIA+ community, and I have known I was LGBTQIA+ for 37 years. I've lived in this area for 21 of those years. These are some difficult times for those of us who are LGBTQ+. And I have friends all across the country who are quite frankly terrified right now. We see what is happening in the immigrant community, where people could be disappeared from the places they frequent every day without warning. We wonder if perhaps we could be next. This resolution is important because it affirms that this area is safe and that our neighbors will watch for us and watch out for us, regardless if they agree with all our decisions. None of us are going to agree with all the decisions that another human being makes, but we need to love each other and protect each other. I will also say that this is very important for our young people who are just figuring out who they are and need love and understanding and compassion rather than judgment. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? Please step to the podium, state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Doris Davies, and I actually wasn't planning on speaking today, but I felt like I might as well if there's an opportunity. I've lived in the city of Bothell for, 20-some years now, and have loved raising my children here. And when I was made aware of the proposal today, it kind of saddened me. I read the whole proclamation. And I guess I feel like we have a very diverse community. You saw the Muslims come in here today and share about, what was it? Arabs. Oh, Arabs, sorry. I came in later. But anyways, we're very welcoming as a community. I've always felt that way. And I actually haven't been aware of any discrimination against any special community here in Bothell, whether it be immigration or anything else. And I think we obviously need to love all these people, but I don't feel that it really helps to highlight a certain group of people. And with my taxpayer money, I'd like it to be used in a broad way that really helps all the citizens of the city of Bothell rather than just one group. And I looked through that proposal, and it appeared to me that we would be spending quite a bit of money, city money, providing these different parades and drag queen shows and different things. And I just feel like it's something that we need to be making sure that as a city council that we're representing the entire community of Bothell rather than just a percentage of the city of Bothell. So anyways, that's just something I felt that would be important to share, and I hope that you guys take this all into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please step to the podium. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and honorable council members. My name is John Culver, resident of Kenmore. Tonight, I want to talk about this resolution affirming protections of LGBTQIA folks. You've clearly provoked community ire when you've got people living in other cities with a bee in their bonnet about this, coming out on a school night to wade in on this. Listen, I'm a big and committed believer in civic engagement. I wanted to start with just sending a big salute and a heck yes to everyone showing up and getting involved. And if we want to talk about protections, I mean, I'm a firm believer in protecting our First Amendment and our rights to free speech. So kudos for speaking up and making your voices heard. Now, to that end, sometimes when I get up here and make my public comment, I feel like, and I know several others who feel this too, sometimes I feel like only getting 3 minutes at the public comment can feel a little stifling. That might not be enough time to get everything fully off my chest, Sometimes I gotta say something that doesn't fit neatly in a tiny box, which then I really gotta take a step back for a second. I start thinking, hey, I thought this was supposed to be a public meeting. Why does the city get to impose limits on people exercising their right to free speech and public comment? That can't be how state law works, is it? Who does the city think they are? Goodness. Folks, my message for everyone here tonight, we've got to keep the energy going. We can't be bound by all these cockamamie rules. We've got to start self-organizing. Outside of just city council business, we need our own networks and community to get togethers, to talk about our issues and set our agenda. And if this issue is bothering you and you think council needs to reject this resolution, please accept my invitation, okay? Let's start lining up our next moves. I'm just over in Kenmore, right? I know the perfect venue. We've got like 45 acres. It's right on the water. It's mostly covered in gravel at the moment, and rocks and sand and other stuff. But just make sure to wear the right shoes, all right? It's not gonna hurt you. You might have to, kind of kick and step through the materials a little bit as you make your way on the property, but it's right there on the water. We're gonna start having our own meetings. All right, this is blinking, so I think I'm about out of time. I'll try to summarize quickly. Sorry to have to repeat myself, but I just want to quickly summarize. Kudos to everybody for making their voices heard, and if you think these so-called protections in this resolution are just another immoral deviation from our creator's plan, please accept my invitation to kick rocks. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience here tonight that wishes to speak? Please step to the podium, state your name.
Hello, Mona Atala here. I'm a Bothell resident. I have 2 kids and have raised them here for their lives. I also was not expecting to speak today, but I suppose when it calls you, it calls you. So I'm here to speak on the resolution by the City of Bothell to affirm Bothell as a welcoming community and commit to proactive protections to our civil liberties. The reason that we create protections for small minorities or underserved groups is because it protects all of us. As someone who believes in the strength of community, I was up here earlier talking about community. I want to express my deep appreciation for Bothell for affirming itself as a welcoming city for all communities, including our LGBTQ+ neighbors. Inclusion is not about rejecting faith or identity. It's about ensuring anyone, regardless of who they are or who they love, feels safe, seen, and valued in our shared spaces. Our city is at its best when it embraces the full diversity of its people, whether that's race, culture, faith, or identity. A community that welcomes Arab Americans, as we spoke earlier, the Sikh community that we also heard from today, immigrants, people of all religions, and the LGBTQ community is one that truly lives up to the values of dignity, compassion, and justice that I know we all believe in. Being welcoming doesn't mean that we all have to agree on everything, but it does mean we commit to treating each other with respect, protecting each other's rights, and ensuring that nobody's left out on the promise of belonging. I'm proud to stand with my city and affirming that Bothell is a place for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? I have a, go ahead, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, sorry, my name is Josh Hollister. I'm a Bothell resident and a teacher. I've heard a lot of people talk about freedom. A lot of people talk about compassion, but I've worked with kids for over a decade, and I've had so many kids who have not been seen or heard for who they truly are. And I see what mark that leaves when they feel they're in a society that does not welcome them for who they are, for who they truly are. That's real empathy, is not imagining what it's like, but really trying to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. So it's imperative that kids feel seen, feel heard for whoever they are in our community. Proclamations like this go a long way to do so. Having someone that's different than you is not dangerous. I've heard a lot of talk about freedom, but it seems more couched in denying other people freedoms. Comparing these things to soiling yourself is not empathy. It is not a threat to us to have diversity. Diversity makes our society stronger. So thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? I do have one person who has raised their hand for the virtual, so I'll panel them in right now. Mr. Swanson, can you hear me?
I can, City Clerk. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Greetings, all. I'm Mark Swanson. I've been a resident of Bothell for 34 years. I would like to encourage the council to adopt the recommendations for extending retail into the single-family residences of Bothell as soon as they can, even prior to Olympia making the decision. I would like to see the council follow through the Planning Commission's recommendation and make sure and eliminate any off-street parking requirements. We want to open up our city streets to neighborhood retail. I'd further like to acknowledge the courage of the council in defying the citywide poll taken in 2022, where over 60% of the Bothell residents objected to any further urban densification. It showed the courage of your conviction that the council stepped up because they knew better. I'd also like to thank the council for their courage in changing the frontage regulations. Changing the frontage regulations and placing greater burdens on single-family residences to subsidize small-scale infill. That makes small-scale infill makes a lot more sense. I'd also like to thank the council for Hybrid 2.5, which follows the projections of the Puget Sound Regional Council and not the Office of Financial Management for countywide increases in population projections, which, you know, it took a little bit of courage to go against state law and vote those regulations in. Shows again the courage of your convictions. I'd like to thank the council for going forward. And I think you need to show the maximum amount of courage. Bothell, after all, is still over 60% owner-occupied residences, but they don't need to count. What needs to count is your vision looking forward, maximizing neighborhood residential, minimizing parking thresholds, zero them out, and do so before Olympia makes their decision. They may, after all, vote it down. So all those things I want to encourage the council to do, because I can't think of a better way to continue to wake up the Bothell residences to your shenanigans. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have left to speak. If there's anybody else in the virtual audience who does wish to speak, please use the raise hand function and we will panel you in. That's all I have, Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next up on our agenda is the City Manager report. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for your time tonight. There's no formal presentations under the City Manager's report tonight, but I do have one brief update and then two questions for Council. So first of all, you may have noticed there's been a lot of financial news going on in the world lately, so pleased to provide a positive update. Earlier today, the Standard & Poor's released a press release on an updated bond rating for the city of Bothell. Back in 2014, the city applied for or received a bond, and part of the conditions of that was there was a midpoint check-in to see how the city's credit rating was going. While it doesn't affect the rates, it is a good temperature check, and as we've discussed during the budget time, there are some strategies that the council has put in place to further strengthen the financial conditions of the city. So it's always helpful to get some feedback from the outside. Bothell was upgraded to a AA rating from AA-, which is great news. Highlights from the report is that the financial outlook of our community is stable, that they looked to the combined utilities' robust financial performance, the responsible reserves, the city's robust financial and capital forecasting, and as well as a continuous review and update of internal financial controls. I just wanted to note that, particularly to highlight a thank you to our finance department and to our public works team for the work that goes into anytime we get one of these reviews. It does take hours to prepare for an interview, but I also want to express my thanks to the City Council as well for, again, steady leadership and a financial mind of looking at making sure that the right services are provided for this community to continue to move it forward into the future with an eye on financial sustainability. So job well done to the council as well for your leadership. Thank you. With that, I will also note that as the clock is winding down on the legislative session, there's a number of final decisions left to be made. And as we heard in our report last week from Shelley Helder, the state budget is still being developed. It may even go into overtime, using a sports analogy. But there was 2 requests that the city has received for council support, and I wanted to take them one at a time. And you don't have to vote tonight, but what I'd be looking for is concurrence or maybe it's even cleaner to say if there's any objections, and then we'll go from there. If not, if we are silenced, we're going to take that as direction to go. But our locally here, Cascadia College, as you know, has been in the plans and actually have permits submitted to the city for the construction of a new building. It would be the portal of the welcoming portal for the campus, and their plan is to then co-locate all student services into that building. It would be right at the north end of campus. They would then repurpose existing spaces that are used for student services to increase class sizes. They are looking for a letter of support from council. The House budget did eliminate funding for construction of that building. Previously, in previous budgets, the work to move forward had been lined up, and again, they've applied for permits. They're looking for support from the region of continuing forward on that. Again, we know the House has a tremendous challenge of figuring out how to find balance, but part of the message here too is to really turn this to the community college system to look within the available funds to decide what projects move forward. So again, on that one, I'll pause. If there's any concerns with signing on to that letter, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, per the council protocol, the mayor would sign on behalf of the city council. All right, I see a lot of nods and affirmation. The other one came in just more recently, and this came from the Port Association, and you might ask, why would the Port Association look for support from cities? But in this case, it does have to do with funding that is potentially being reallocated out of some funds that normally would be used for environmental cleanup. The city has been a beneficiary of these funds before, and it has been part of what has moved forward the remediation here in downtown Bothell as the downtown is revitalized. So with that, they are looking for, in this case, not a signature, but being able to attach logos of organizations supporting preserving the funding for future consideration. While we are not anticipating getting any remedial action grants in this budget, we do have fund requests in the pipeline, and this is something that in the future the city would be looking to. So again, happy to answer any questions as best I can. And if there's no concerns, we'd move forward with attaching the city's logo to this letter. All right. And with that, that concludes tonight's city manager report.
Thank you. Next up, we have council committee reports, community reports, and conversations. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll put this under the conversations subsection, I guess. When we started the meeting, we started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Part of the Pledge of Allegiance, it says one nation under God, indivisible and with liberty and justice for all. To me, all means all. Liberty is for everybody. Indivisible, what I heard today, whereas I do appreciate people coming out and exercising their freedom of speech or freedom to practice their religion, this is what makes our country great. We cannot, I don't think, as an immigrant, an Arab, a Muslim, discriminate against anybody, including our LGBTQIA+ community members. They're human beings. If anybody disagrees with them, publicly commenting and hating on them is not the way to even if what was said was true, even if it was true. I don't think so, but even if it was, yelling at people, screaming at them in public is not the way to change their minds. So I hope that our city, what makes Bothell a great community for me and my family personally is how welcoming most people are. My neighbors, we walk in the streets, we say hi to each other. We don't ask them what your background is. Oh, you walk funny. So hence I'm going to hate you. We don't do that. If I see my fellow human being get it hated on, I'm going to speak up. I don't care what their background is. I don't care what they believe in. Humans are humans, and they have the right to do whatever they want. It's human rights. We talk about human rights. We talk about justice. We talk about liberty. We talk about indivisibility, if that's even a word. So showing division is not the way to act, especially not at this time where everyone, I mean, regardless of who we support, who don't support, everybody is struggling. We cannot divide each other further. I fundamentally believe this, and I welcome conversations, I welcome discussions, I welcome exercising freedom of speech. I welcome, if people are going to disagree, let's disagree, but let's be respectful with each other. So I wasn't planning on saying anything, but I have colleagues here who are also good friends of mine way before I even thought about being in this seat, and I fully support them. So that's all.
All right, Councilmember Aldrich.
Well, so that it can be a conversation, I thought I would respond with a thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for speaking for inclusion, for individual freedoms, and for compassion for our family members, our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dodd.
I guess you'd have to wait one more person.
I guess we're just doing it now instead of in the next agenda discussion.
I'm just going to say thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I know from living here for 32 of my 37 years that the people of Bothell are aligned with the Deputy Mayor and not with the hateful and frankly uneducated comments that we've heard tonight. And I greatly appreciate that about my hometown.
I have lots to say, but we do have a projected agenda discussion coming up next. And I think I'll say it there so I can say it all at once. So we're going to move on to 6A, a resolution affirming Bothell as a welcoming community for transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse people. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And as touched on last week during the City Council meeting, Councilmember Aldrich had expressed interest in bringing forward a resolution for consideration for the council tonight. It is before you to determine whether or not to place this on an upcoming agenda. And a draft of the resolution is in your packet to review. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Councilmember Aldrich to lead the discussion amongst you to see if there is support to move this forward. Again, we don't take a vote on projected agenda items, but if there's a concurrence of council, we will move forward with bringing it forward for a vote at a later time.
Thank you, City Manager. As I expressed last week, there have been some community groups who have approached the city, have approached us, and asked for this resolution. Much of this, that is in the resolution, really is reaffirming what is already standard practice and commonplace within the city. I find that the staff, including our public safety officers, our firefighters, our police officers, our crisis responders, already act in accordance with the values of this resolution. And for that, I am grateful. So that my loved ones and even myself can feel safe and welcome in this community. And so I am bringing this forward at the encouragement of local community groups, at the encouragement of members of the transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse, gender non-conforming people of Bothell to reaffirm our commitment to these practices. And I invite my colleagues to approve this as an agenda item for our next week where we can vote on it. Thank you.
Councilmember Mankey.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Aldrich, I just have a couple of questions about the resolution.
I know we just did a welcoming resolution just a few weeks back. I think it was the end of February, middle of February, that covered all of our potentially vulnerable neighbors, including the neighbors represented in this resolution. I'm curious, is there something that occurred since that time that I guess would encourage us to do an additional resolution? Did something change during that time? And if so, I'm just curious genuinely like what that was and why an additional resolution separate and apart from the one we just did is something we should really consider doing.
I would also welcome you to have this conversation off the dais as well, so that we can have this person to person and not in public. But to answer publicly, what has changed is that members of our community have come to me in terror and fear for their lives, for their safety, for their well-being. And I want to be responsive to people in my community who are hurting. And so that is why I'm bringing this forward.
Thank you. That makes sense. I think I'll start off just by saying I want everybody to feel that Bothell is a safe and welcoming place. I think we all want that. I think we've heard from this dais that for the majority, we feel like it is a safe and welcoming place. It's a great place to live. We don't always agree on everything, but we are all neighbors, and regardless of who you are, where you come from, Bothell is your hometown. And I'd say for the most part, people do treat each other in that way. But that being said, I think one of my big concerns about moving forward with this resolution for a vote is really we're doing some duplicative work, which is it's sometimes the case. We do that from time to time. We passed a comp plan, and now we're looking to potentially amend that this year and make some changes. But also in taking the previous resolution that included all potentially vulnerable groups, we're taking one out now and committing to a number of actions that I don't know that we would do that if other groups came forward and requested the same thing. So my concern is really we're looking at doing something for one group, and we likely wouldn't do it if all the other groups came forward with individual requests and individual things. I think also the actions, while we are doing some of them already, there are increased things in there that there's some requests for essentially like reporting out, potentially staff time, potentially other resources, which we don't know about yet. So that's a large concern for me. And I think my main concern with this, and if a resolution does come back for a vote, I would appreciate a staff presentation looking at those things, specifically the what's being requested, how are we going to actually implement it, actionable, what's the resourcing required, and I think we need to have a serious discussion about would we really take individual resolutions for all of the other groups named in the prior resolution and set out individual action items for each of them and commit to doing them as well. So I don't think the answer is yes to that, and I think what we have in place really does cover everybody, and we're saying we're welcoming everybody. We want to include everybody. We want everyone to feel welcome, and we're going to do that holistically across the entire community, regardless of race, religion, sexuality. It doesn't matter who you are, again, where you come from, what your ideals are. Everybody is welcome in the city of Bothell, and we can all be neighbors. We can all get along with each other, even if we don't agree on various things. So that's my perspective on it. That's what I've been thinking about this week. And I would welcome further discussion on that, and I'm curious to hear what others are thinking.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thank you. I think that the breadth of comments we received tonight and in our inboxes is a reason to discuss this next week. And I can understand the worries about potential fiscal impacts, and I look forward to a staff report on that. I would ask, should you vote no because of that, please disclaim the rhetoric that people are coming to us with and be clear why you're voting no. That's very important to the people in our community that we all represent. Thank you.
Councilmember Curd.
Thanks. I support coming back, this resolution coming back next week for discussion.
It's ironic to me that some of the things I've seen in comments with people who don't want us to do this resolution absolutely reinforce the need for it. If everybody just let other people exist in peace, we wouldn't need this kind of resolution, but that unfortunately isn't the reality that we live in. Members of the LGBTQI plus community, particularly trans and non-gender conforming people, suffered discrimination in all aspects of life, and that is not okay. The reason that we single one group out is because we have to, because they are singled out on a very regular basis. And as long as we have people who won't affirm the entire humanity of segments of our population, I will keep voting for resolutions, because Bothell is everyone's hometown. And as the deputy mayor said, everyone means everyone. Additionally, I'd like to say that regardless of what your role in this meeting is, what we say and how we accept people in public matters. A recent study showed that states who pass anti-trans laws see up to an over 70% increase in suicides in that population. You guys are talking about your neighbors. And comparing your neighbors to children soiling their pants is hate speech. In Christian terms, we call these people image bearers of Christ. And my Christian faith would never allow me to denigrate a fellow image bearer like that. These are vulnerable neighbors, the kind Jesus would have called the least of these brothers and sisters of mine. And in the parable of the sheep and the goats, when he was essentially asked who's with me and who's against me, he said, that which you've done to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you have done also unto me. So you will always find me on the side of the vulnerable, the oppressed, and the discriminated against because of my faith. I could say more, but I am in full support of this resolution coming back and look forward to voting yes on it. And with that, I would love to accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Dodd.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dodd and a second from Councilmember Curd to approve the consent agenda. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alderks?
Yes.
Councilmember Curd?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 6-0 with Councilmember Zorns absent.
All right. With that, before we move on to our next agenda item, we are going to take a break. It is 7:17. We will come back at 8:05 p.m. Or no, I can't count. I'm jet lagged. I'm sorry. We're not going to come back at 8:05. We're going to come back at 7:35. All right, welcome back. Next up is the ordinance to ascend BMC Chapter 2.92 on salary commissions. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one item for you here before you for an ordinance and resolution. As you'll recall, staff was before you earlier after receiving direction in January, came back with a study session to discuss proposed changes. Here tonight to give a brief summary of what those changes are and walk you through the red line version of the proposed revised chapter is Matthew Pruitt, our Director of Employee and Technology Services. He's joined by Eileen Kiefer to answer any questions related to the code or RCWs. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council.
I am here this evening to present the ordinance to amend Bothell Municipal Code Chapter 2.92 regarding the Salary Commission. Bothell Municipal Code 2.92, which outlines the process required to convene an independent salary commission, was established in 2009 to determine compensation for elected officials in the city of Bothell. Over the years, Chapter 2.92 has undergone several changes to improve the effectiveness of the Salary Commission. In 2019, the City Council amended the code to state that the Salary Commission would be appointed and could meet every even number year instead of every 6 years. And then in 2024, further revisions were adopted to align with state law. Earlier this year, the council requested, as Kyle said, a discussion on the frequency of appointing and convening the Salary Commission, leading to a study session in February. Based on that discussion at the study session, staff has drafted the current ordinance amending Chapter 2.92. There are two key changes in the ordinance. The first change is that the Salary Commission will convene every other year for a period of no more than 90 days to conduct a comprehensive full review of compensation for the mayor, deputy mayor, and city council members. Additionally, in subsequent years, the commission may meet for adjustment reviews no more than 3 times in the months of August and September. In both years, the commission may request that council extend the stated deadline. This change from a biennial to an annual review is intended to ensure that compensation for the mayor, deputy mayor, and city council remains fair and reflective of community expectations, keeping in mind council's desire to increase accessibility to public office within the city of Bothell. Annual reviews are also intended to provide continuity in the commission's work, ensuring that compensation decisions are consistently reviewed and updated if deemed necessary. The second change proposed is to increase the number of commission members from 3 to 5. The reason for this is to provide broader community representation and diverse perspectives in making these important decisions. Members of the commission will be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the city council and will serve staggered 4-year terms. This structure will again offer continuity and stability in the commission's work, assisting staff with scheduling challenges and ensuring regular meetings can be held within the time frame that the commission completes its work. These amendments are designed to align within the framework established by RCW 352115 and to address the feedback received from our previous discussions. And Eileen and I are here for any questions that you might have.
Anybody? Bueller. Councilmember Curd.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the update and for coming back with some of the proposals to amend the code. I think I can tell that you really listened to the feedback that we shared with you at the study session. And so I appreciate everything that you've outlined here. I think that it goes a long way to helping the commission be more stable and help the continuity of the commission over time. I think that's something that would be really helpful for such a small commission to have a little bit more stability. So I'm in support. I don't know if you're looking for necessarily like just concurrence right now to schedule it, or are you looking for a vote tonight?
That's a good question. I believe that in your packet that there's a recommended motion to approve the ordinance.
Correct. Councilmember Alders.
If there are no other comments, I would move the recommended action.
I will second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Alders and a second from Councilmember Curd to approve the recommended action. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? I will. Just wanted to say thanks. This is really thorough. This is like, we feel really heard. Like this, I like the recommendations and the reason for it. And I will be voting yes. City Clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alders?
Yes.
Councilmember Curd?
Yes.
Councilmember Mankey?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. And thank you. I feel like we should have asked Eileen some questions. Like we had her right there. All right, next up is 2025 board and commission appointments. City Manager.
Thanks again, Mayor. And so, yes, following your interviews tonight, the city clerk is here to walk you through being able to vote for the next slate of board and commission members. I will also note, just to advocate on behalf of the city clerk, that after you are completed voting, we would like to have a recess to be able to allow time to tally. So just as you turn in the ballots, then Mayor, you get to decide another recess point, and that'll be great. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our city clerk, Laura Hathaway.
I was going to say, maybe that one will be 8:05.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Thompson and council members. Before you is the opportunity to appoint 16 open positions on the 5 council-appointed boards and commissions this evening. Council interviewed 23 applicants at a special meeting on March 25th. Per the protocol manual, section 2.08D2, council will cast their votes using the written ballots that have been provided for you up at the dais. After casting your ballots, please submit them to the deputy city clerk. And as Kyle said, we will take a brief recess while we tally the votes. Applicants must receive a majority vote of council members present for appointment. And as you may have noticed, Councilmember Zorns has joined us virtually. She did send me she was sent the ballot and she sent me hers back earlier. So we do have hers for this evening. We will vote as many rounds as necessary until all appointments are made. And after I announce the appointments, I would ask that the council ratify the votes. So with that, please fill out your ballots if you haven't already and pass them down to Amy, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, perfect. Thank you.
I have a question, sir. On the ballot, it says circle 4 and maybe 1 or 2, circle 4 or 5 and 2 youth. Is the youth number inclusive of that 5 or is it exclusive? It's inclusive, right? So
we have 4 appointments.
Yes.
Like as on the Arts Commission, we have 4 and 2 are youth appointments.
Okay, thank you.
And then down on Parks, we also have 2 youth appointments.
That's right. Thank
so
you.
We had 3 youth for arts, and we have 2 appointments.
I see. Okay, thanks.
You can write in for the youth to serve on the other board or commission.
Great. Thanks for the clarification.
Sure. So we're going to take a brief recess, maybe 5 minutes while we tally.
Can we do 10?
10? Yeah. 10. We're going to do 10 minutes while we tally.
Welcome back. Do we have a tally?
We do, thank you. I will go through this and let everybody know. For the Arts Commission, Kylie Chang received 7 votes. A.C. Peterson received 7 votes. Anvitha Babu received 4. Anshi Shah received 4. So those are your appointments. Raina Lee, the other youth position, received 3 votes. So we have those 4. LTAC, all 4, we have 4 openings with 4 people, so that was easy, 7 all across the board. Planning Commission, Carrie Westerbeck received 5 votes, and James Mancinelli received 2 votes. So Carrie's been reappointed. Landmark, we had 2 positions open, 2 vacancies and 2 people. Both received 7, so Ray Thomas and Karen Mosaker are our 2 appointees. And for Parks, we had Malia Carsagolia received, and I hope I said that right, 7. Sheila Briesi received 7. Nicholas Bohr received 7. Those are all the incumbents. Sanvi Vontella received 7. That's a youth appointment. And Raina Lee, who applied originally for arts, she received 4 votes. So those are your appointments. I will keep the written ballot. They will be made part of the record, and we will notify them as soon as you ratify the votes. So I'd like a motion to do that if I could have.
Councilmember Mankey.
I was just looking for the recommended action. I don't think there's an official language there. So I move to ratify the votes per the results presented by the city clerk.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Mankey and a second from Councilmember Dodd. Would anybody like to speak to the motion?
I just want to comment on our city attorney's, how proud she was by Councilmember Mankey's motion.
I noticed that too. She's like, oh, the electeds, they learn. City Clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Zorns?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alders?
Yes.
Councilmember Kurt?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you very much, and we will notify the applicants tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is study sessions. We're going to go down there. Yeah. All right. We have a study session for Phase 2 Comprehensive Plan Code updates. City Manager.
Yeah, we have one study session for you tonight. Of course, not for action, but it is for feedback. We'll be walking through a series of considerations for council. And again, this may be the last time I point it out because we're getting into the pattern, but there are a series of questions that we'll highlight to help guide the conversation and make sure that we walk away with clear direction. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to the Deputy Director of our Community Development Department, Christian Getz, to introduce the topic.
Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Yes, so as the City Manager mentioned, we're gonna be focusing on this Phase 2 Code Amendment grouping. Tonight, no action, just guidance and feedback. There are a number of items that we're going to run through. We want to make sure that we're focusing on there's a lot more focus that will likely happen on neighborhood scale commercial and parking. The floor area ratio and lot coverage. We have a recommendation from Planning Commission on sort of the next steps. We do have a general recommendation on neighborhood scale commercial and parking from Planning Commission as well. And then we have a small group of administrative updates that we're going to go through. We call these the Phase 2 Code Amendments based on the Phase 2 Comp Plan Code Amendment group. So these are some of those items that were sort of left in the wings as we wrapped up the end of last year, and we're coming back to you. These are either based on conversations, questions that came up kind of at the end of the line in the year, and we wanted to make sure we had time to do that with the recommendations that are within the packet. We are hoping to move forward and be ready for an ordinance for those items in June, beginning of July at the latest. And there are a couple in there that do have some sort of peeling them apart, breaking them away from this cart of items. As the city manager mentioned, we do have a series of questions that were within the packet, and we'll circle back to these at the very end. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jacqueline Sampson to run through these items and take us from here.
All right, thank you. So first we'll be talking about neighborhood scale commercial. So we're proposing neighborhood scale commercial options because the 2024 comprehensive plan supports small scale retail throughout the city. To guide this, we're using the Department of Commerce's recommendations. And after discussions with Planning Commission, we've drafted the following for council to consider. Limits and operating hours, size limits based on 30% of the lot size, a list of allowed uses following commerce guidelines, as well as a definition and intent statement, which in the event that a proposed use does not fit perfectly in our allowed uses, we can lean on the intent and the definition to determine if the use is allowed in neighborhood scale commercial or not. These recommendations are in further detail on page 178 of the agenda packet. So next we'll be talking about parking. Since 2022, the city has been discussing potential changes to parking requirements with growing interest in reducing minimums in 2023 and 2024. Right now, Senate Bill 5184 is moving through the 2025 state legislative session. The proposed bill as of March 21st included as attachment 2 in your packet, but the bill is at a current stage where it can have adjustments and staff are monitoring these changes as they happen. The Planning Commission supports aligning our parking code updates with this bill. Staff are using SB 5184 as a starting point and are looking for any additional direction from council. Lowering or removing parking minimums can help make housing more affordable, improve building design and flexibility, reduce environmental impacts, use land more efficiently, and encourage walking, biking, and transit. This shift would let developers decide how much parking makes sense for their projects, but it is a big change and some community members may have questions. For our next steps, staff will return to Planning Commission in May with draft code updates, and a public hearing and final ordinance could come to council in June if supported. So floor area ratio, FAR, and lot coverage. Starting with FAR. So FAR is the ratio of the total building floor area to the total lot area. Conversations around FAR came out of discussion with Planning Commission on the possibility of eliminating the requirement for development. FAR is used to determine the size of buildings allowed on a lot, considering factors like critical areas or easements that may reduce buildable size. The city has both minimum and maximum FARs to make sure development matches the comprehensive plan and the zoning goals. On attachment 2 of your packet, we've highlighted a few properties within the city and their FARs to show some examples of what different FARs can look like, as well as there's a picture on the screen right now that kind of shows what different FARs can look like as well. After analysis, we haven't seen any projects close to the max of FAR in their area or being restricted in size due to FAR. Removing the current maximum FAR would need more study, especially as part of the comprehensive plan update. This includes reviewing impacts on housing, transportation, or infrastructure. So after discussions with Planning Commission, it's recommended further studying the elimination of FAR maximum and consider the topic to be considered as a potential future work plan item, such as the Canyon Park sub-area update in the fall of 2026. The portion of a lot coverage is a portion of a property that is covered by buildings, structures, and impervious surfaces such as driveways, patios, or parking areas. City Council wanted community development staff to review the possibility of removing lot coverage from the Bothell Municipal Code and only use stormwater regulations to regulate lot coverage. If we were to use stormwater regulations, which does not impose any impervious surface maximums, then development could reach 100% impervious surface, assuming that the impacts are properly mitigated. The city recently increased allowed building and hard surface coverage, which was effective January 1st, and there's no current need for further adjustments. However, having two separate lot coverage calculations, having both building and hard surface coverage overcomplicates development regulations. So staff recommends postponing any changes to lot coverage rules until the city finishes updates to the parking regulations and the urban forestry management plan, as these efforts may affect tree canopy goals, but also suggesting removing the building coverage limit and using only the hard surface coverage cap to simply streamline the code. This will simplify the code and create greater flexibility for projects, and no changes are proposed to the existing hard surface maximum. All right, and we have administrative updates. So city staff regularly review development standards to keep them clear, effective, and aligned with changing conditions. We've identified 3 areas of improvement, starting with variance criteria. The current rules are complex and rarely used, and staff proposes updates to make the process clearer and more reasonable for applicants facing unique site challenges without weakening development regulations. For the code amendment process, we're looking to simplify how private parties request changes to the comprehensive plan or development regulations to make the process easier for applicants, staff, and the public. And lastly, overlay zones. So new overlay zones were added in the 2024 plan update. Staff recommend reorganizing these in the code to improve clarity and consistency, and this won't change any policy or rules. However, after further analysis of the overlay zones, it looks like consolidating and the overlay classifications with their corresponding zones will take more time than the other listed Phase 2 code updates, and this is due to having different combinations of zones within the same overlay area. So what's the next steps? Planning Commission supported staff's recommendation to, 1, continue work on the variance criteria and code amendment process, with drafts expected by June, as well as separate the overlay update and have it and complete it later this year. All right, so again, tonight we're not asking for any action. We're just looking at feedback and guidance for the Phase 2 comprehensive plan topics. This is kind of a summary table of everything we talked about today, including the different topics, Planning Commission's recommendations moving forward, as well as timelines for next steps on those topics. All right, so circling back to our discussion questions, we would love to have feedback from City Council on the Phase 2 code updates and gain any direction before we meet with Planning Commission in May to move forward with these updates. Thank you.
I usually don't go first, and I'll probably have more thoughts after the discussion. The question on the neighborhood retail, 30% lot coverage seems like plenty in most of the city, but the one concern I have is that our smallest lots are also our most densely zoned lots, and I just want to make sure that we're not overly restricting them in the areas in the city where they're the most likely to be successful and be built. So if we've got our 2,700 lots that are zoned for, a decent amount of housing on there, I just want to make sure that the flat 30% is well thought out and we know we're getting it everywhere. And very much in support of corner stores. And if somebody wants to put one in my neighborhood, if anybody's watching, please do. In terms of parking, parking is a government mandated tax on new housing and small businesses that we want, and the result that we get from it is more pavement, more air pollution, more tire dust, 6 ppdq pollution, and we know that it drives more traffic. People that I talk to in Bothell generally want more housing, less traffic, less pollution, and less pavement. So I would be in full support of moving forward with completely eliminating. Also, I really appreciate the fact that you guys are already looking at the bill that's in the I don't know which chamber it's in right now, but it's in Olympia right now. The one question that I have is, it was, I think, about 3 years ago we met and did our first vision, and we put parking enforcement, parking management on the roadmap. Do we know roughly when we expect that to come back? Is there an update?
Yeah, we have a team that's been working on that. We actually just completed an inventory of downtown parking spaces. There's a little over 400 spots available. So we're looking at that and then options of what would be included. As we're also then considering different uses of technology to help with enforcement, there's some work that we're doing as we investigate in terms of tools that will help enforcement of parking, including license plate reading, to do that. So we're working on something. I think the plan had been for June. So I think I'm getting it up to speed on helping that continue forward, and we'll be bringing it back as soon as possible.
Fantastic. And not that everybody here doesn't know it, but for community members who are watching, like, the fact that we're looking at eliminating parking minimums doesn't mean that we're eliminating parking. Developers still will be able to build enough parking, and they will, because they need to make their place attractive to live. And we also don't want to see a city in which nobody builds any parking and everybody takes up the street parking all the time. But I do think there are better tools to manage that than simply requiring people to build something they don't want to build and give it away for free. So I am glad to hear that we are already in process on that, and we have an end date that's not too far out. Question on FAR. The packet basically had kind of two conclusions, that like people aren't building up to the max FAR already. So it kind of doesn't matter. Why do we need to do this? But also we need to spend a lot of time studying it before we can remove it. And I'm having trouble squaring those two things.
Yeah, so the maximum FAR that is in place is what we plan for within the comp plan as far as residential units, amount of commercial office space. So if we take that ceiling away, we may not see development go beyond what the current maximum is, but we still have to plan for it, and we have to work through those assumptions and what our maximum development potential really could be. Okay. And that equation, we don't know what it would look like, but we need to make sure that our transportation element, our capital facilities plan, the CIP, it all squares with what that might work out to be. Okay. And evaluate that through an EIS update, EIS addendum, potentially, or go beyond that if it really, explodes those numbers significantly.
If people aren't building up to the max FAR already,
it's one of those. In order for us to
I see you.
for it to go through commerce and for it to be in compliance with GMA, we need to make sure that we're checking those boxes and making sure that if it were to, then yes. So
I mean, and if people aren't building up to it already, like, I don't personally feel a lot of urgency around this, but I also feel that it's an additional unnecessary restriction that I would like to get rid of. So I'm fine waiting on it. Like, I don't remember the exact timeline, but it didn't bother me. The timeline didn't, but I'm still in support of moving forward. Lot coverage, I just wanted to say one thing. Like, I have no problem having 100% lot coverage for buildings. Like, I just don't want to have more pavement. Like, we have enough pavement. So, like, if there's a way we can, when we cover this down the road, if we can have restrictions that delineate in between a building and pavement, I would like to do that. Like, so that's all I've got.
Just to thank you first for the presentation. Appreciate you doing this. And I in general, I agree with the recommendations, and I don't know why my brain shut down. But anyway, let me look at, because I'm looking at my scratch notes. So it's like it's like, what is going on? The lot coverage, speaking of lot coverage, I don't have an issue with what the mayor said either. The question I have is in the table with the dates, because it's dependent on the parking and urban forestry plan. I know it's TBD, but like, is there an approximate TBD or?
Yeah. So if we progress with whatever comes out of Olympia for parking, or we go beyond, that's a June, July.
I see.
Timeframe.
Okay.
The urban forestry management plan, we should have that plan wrapped up the end of this year, beginning of next year at the latest. Okay. And that's going to help provide us the policy for, what have we seen with tree canopy loss or retention with our previous standards? What do our new standards, how do they set us up for growth, retention, loss? And that can help with that conversation to set the goals that you want to see with where the canopy would go, so that we do accurately set our maximum lot coverage for a site and say, if it's If it ends up being 15% and you can get all the trees you need to maintain or grow your canopy, the building can be everything else. So. just wanna make sure
And
you
I
know that.
appreciate that. It's just, I mean, if we can indicate that here somehow,
Yeah, and we'll
as
have-
we visit these things over and over. throughout
Yeah,
this
as
year.
we get into June and July through the UFMP work that we have, and as you receive updates on that from Cameron, we will know when that TBD becomes just a D. And it
Yeah,
is
well, I'm not saying we have to D it right now. I'm just saying, just say approximate Q1 2026 or whatever.
It's Q4 this year or Q1 2026 at the
Yeah.
latest is our goal. Yep.
Just to set the expectation, because this one makes it open-ended,
Mm-hmm.
and for future folks, you might have people who are even more hardcore project manager than I am. Anyway, cool. Thank you. No, in general, I like where we are, the recommendations and further discussions.
Thank you for the,
Hardcore project managers. It's my new band name.
thank you for the presentation. Just to weigh in on the things you're asking for, I understand the things that we're deferring and why, and I just appreciate the frankness with that. Like, we don't want to ask you guys to put things out of order, which just makes it more confusing in the end. I also like what we're talking about with neighborhood scale retail. I do appreciate the mayor's comment about the 30% lot coverage kind of maybe being restrictive in our more dense zones. So a mechanism to kind of mitigate that when we do look at code would be really helpful. Because that's also where a lot of these convenience businesses will pencil out the best. So yeah, I appreciate that point a lot. And then the other thing is, as long as it's tied in with parking enforcement, I think that removing parking minimums, it's my understanding there's not a lot of science behind parking minimums, and I just really struggle asking people to meet a burden that we can't really justify all the time. So I would be fine removing them, but again, with parking enforcement as part of it. I do hear from residents, specifically downtown, who just see kind of the same cars parked for days and days in the street parking, and that's not really what that's supposed to be used for. And until we can really create turnover for businesses and for visitors and guests, I would be wary of changing the parking mix too much. So that's my caveat on that. Otherwise, I agree with that. And then everything else looks good. I appreciate the recommendations from the Planning Commission. I don't have any notes. Thank you.
Just to relate to the parking management, I mean, there's one street parking where we need enforcement, but there's also a lot of empty parking. Developers, like the apartment buildings, are mandated to build parking. A lot of it isn't being used even. So that takes away from housing. So having some parking management, that's another reason why we need to let it to the project owner to determine what the market needs at that time and let them figure it out instead of having to mandate, something that's arbitrary.
Well, and it's interesting to me too that we're kind of having this reckoning with parking where it's like the cost of parking is very heavy, but when you ask people to pay per month for the parking spot that they say that they need, then it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly. So I think it's appropriate to perhaps move the burden of paying for that parking to the people using it versus everybody who buys into a development. So it's a transition for sure, but it'll be interesting.
I did want to clarify one thing real quick on the neighborhood scale commercial. The 30% is a gross floor area of the lot size, not necessarily a lot coverage. So lot coverage would be the footprint, whereas we could be talking about a 2-story structure. So we get the point of scaling it according to the lot size, but it's just for those listening at home, making sure that we're talking more about floor area, gross floor area, as far as that percentage, and we will consider sort of how to scale that for those smaller zones, smaller lots. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And once we get into floor area ratio, it's where the drawings and the examples are very helpful for me because it's so far removed from like my professional expertise that I'm just like, thank goodness for you and your staff. Like that's where we need you in all of this.
I heard that too, and I appreciate the clarification.
I recognize. Question based off of Councilman Dodd's question. With the coverage, the 30% coverage, does that include spaces where there's commercial on the ground floor and living space above? Or does that change if it's just going to be like a commercial space only, does that change kind of how we evaluate that?
It would just be the floor area for the commercial space. So it could be a singular detached garage. It could be the lower floor of a residence. The upper floor could be the residence. The upper floor could be part of the space. I mean, I think about, restaurants that I've been to that are old houses. The entire house is a restaurant. It could be portions of it where you've compartmentalized it, and the front is the restaurant, the back is the house.
Okay. Would like a studio or an artist would be painting, maybe not displaying their art for consumption, but like where they're using it as a creation space and living above, would that fall into the same? So I'm just thinking you could theoretically have townhomes, right, that are almost full lot coverage, and you can have a form and factor that looks very similar where you have that creation space on the ground floor and then living above that is kind of serving as both, but looking the same, and you're limiting the one who wants to use the space a little bit differently. And maybe they do have like showings in their, in their gallery and have people in. So I'm just curious, like, how does that work? Is that getting too nuanced into how it would work? Or
I think we could look into the guidance a little more. I don't know if we were confronted with an artist who utilizes every room in their house to paint and sculpt or do whatever, but their retail space is a defined area. I don't know if we would get that detailed. We would look at the intent of what the neighborhood scale commercial is meant to do, and are they utilizing that for it? Probably not, but we can circle back with you
Just think about that. Like, somebody had a photo studio where they're taking photos of somebody, they're probably only gonna have 1 or 2 people in at a time for photos. We're not gonna have like a mass quantity of people showing up. So those spaces I've heard are desired. I've talked to a couple of business owners that have opened up and they were looking for that and they couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't want to prevent that from happening if it looks and functions similar to like a townhouse. And so that's just thoughts coming out of that question. Feedback on what you presented. I think making the variance process like easier and more streamlined, people appreciate that. Same with the simplification of the hard surface coverage. We talked about last week with sign code. Simplifying is awesome. People love it. It's easier to understand. It's easier to work with. You're not guessing or contacting city staff to get clarification on something. So I appreciate that a lot. I'll echo the parking questions about parking management along with the change in code potentially. Downtown, I think it's really important to keep it circulating because the businesses rely on that turnover. But even in neighborhoods, if we're going to reduce it for housing, that's going to mean more street parking. And I know some people like to park at length on the street. We do have code that says you will move your car every 48 to 72 hours. I can't remember the exact amount of time, but if we're not enforcing that, that could lead to like weeks on end. Storage vehicles, treatment of public property as private property, and we've gotten some contacts about people using public street parking for commercial vehicles for long periods of time. I've seen it in neighborhoods near me where people have parked various cars out and kept them there for a long time, then started working on them, and there's oil all over the street. So those are things I think we need to think about and do in tandem to the others who have brought it up. We need to be able to do that citywide, not just in certain areas, and we need to make sure that there's people out there doing that. So technology is great if we can get that, but just something to keep top of mind as we're considering that.
I love waiting because all my questions get answered. So thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And I'll mention if anyone sees oil on the street, they should call the city's spill hotline, and you can look up that information on the webpage. Someone who cares about stormwater so deeply. Yes, gotta respect the brand. Speaking of stormwater, the one thing that I didn't hear come up was with stormwater regulations, as it's kind of positioned out a little bit in our work plan. I'm thinking one of the things that we should be including in the analyses and the sort of preliminary discussions is that a portion of the city is within a critical aquifer recharge area. And so while who knows whether we will be held to federal standards about aquifer protections, I think we still have a duty to protect stormwater quantity and quality in that space as well. So we should include those when we're talking about lot coverage not mattering or removing restrictions on lot coverage. I think there needs to be mitigation for some of the stormwater losses to aquifer recharge areas and other places around the city. The city's stormwater management action plan, one of the plans about stormwater that the city has right now, talks about strategies that we're using to mitigate creeks drying out in the spring and in the summertime. And so stormwater from lots that are 100% impervious cover can contribute to that sort of flashy flows in our streams. And so thinking about lot coverage in conjunction with critical areas code and also critical aquifer recharge areas, which is not necessarily part of our code, but it is, but implementation is kind of different scale. Those are sort of intersecting issues that we should be thinking about as we sort of chunk out the work plan and think about how we go through that. So I will add a fifth voice to the let's eliminate parking mandates. And yes, we need to look at enforcement in tandem with that as well. Thanks for providing the neighborhood scale commercial pamphlet from Commerce. I think that was great. A couple of months ago, I was like, we don't have this shared definitions of what neighborhood scale commercial sounds like. And one person is saying one thing and I didn't have the same idea. And it makes sense to go with Commerce. So thanks. I'm thinking about how people's mortgages, their CC&Rs, their HOAs, there's so many things working against neighborhood scale commercial uses. And so as flexible as we can make it and as supportive as we can be is kind of the ethic that I'd like to move forward with that topic. But yeah, generally excited to see it kind of at this faster June, July clip, and looking forward to delving into some recommendations from Planning Commission. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sneaking back in really quick to say, hi Jenny, I'm sorry. You can, that's not why. So, there are a lot of houses in Bothell that are within HOAs that have CC&Rs. And this is something that I thought about at first when we were talking about middle housing approximately 1,000 years ago. And I don't live in a neighborhood with an HOA, mainly because someday I want to paint my house pink. Probably won't happen, but it'd be cool. But it lets people choose how much control they want to have on the neighborhood around them in exchange for giving up control over their own house. So I think that that's an important point to people who are like, I hate this, I don't ever want to live next to retail. Live in a neighborhood that has an HOA that lets you have that control over what's around you in a way that you just don't typically. If Mason and I were next door neighbors, I wouldn't get to say what he did at his house because it's his house. He owns it, I own mine. That's kind of where it stops normally. So I think that's something that we can talk to our constituents about when they have concerns, because there are going to be neighborhoods that just won't have this because of the neighborhood like vibe that is, codified in their CC&Rs, but just wanted to throw that out there. When you mentioned that made me think of it, because it does allow people to kind of opt out of some of this stuff, which can be a good point to remind people of. Sorry, Councilmember Alders, go for it.
It is my turn. Considering I painted my house purple, go for it. Paint your house pink. Also, I do not live in an HOA, because I'm sure somebody would have said something. Okay, I have some questions. I'm going to try to go down the list that you have here on the phase update, the time frame that you have listed. Okay, first one is neighborhood scale. So we've been talking about 30% lot coverage from commerce, or sorry, 30% lot coverage for neighborhood retail. Is that a commerce recommendation? Is that where you're getting that number from, or is that planning commission? Like, what's the origin?
It's not a commerce recommendation. They provided different examples of how certain cities are scaling. So there are some that had just a hard maximum, so it's only like this amount of square feet can be commercial. We're basing ours out of Redmond's because they are using 30% as well. They're using 30% of the FAR as an, or sorry, 0.3%. 0.2 FAR as their use. So we decided to use the 30% percentage, the 30% just in the case that if we do eliminate FAR, we don't have to change that as well. So we're kind of just essentially translated that into the code. So we were just using that as an example.
Okay. I think when it comes, if we have a recommendation that is, 30%, and then we have a situation like what Councilmember Menke described of a townhome that is, maybe the entire downstairs, that's 100% of the lot because it's that, that's how much is covered of the lot for that building. I would, is it flexible enough? Is it inclusive enough of uses to go with that recommendation? And I guess, is there and that's the great thing about having a process is that a proposal will be developed. It will come to council. We'll have like a final kind of draft of it before we do the public hearing, before we do take any action. And so I think that there is interest among my colleagues and myself to clarify some of that so that we're making like inclusive opportunities and removing barriers so that so that obvious uses aren't excluded. I think that you'll do it.
Yeah, I think what we can do with Planning Commission is we can bring them draft code with examples, visual examples as well as some options. And so we chose the middle of the road as far as square footage maximums with going above what Redmond had, I think a little bit below what maybe Spokane or it was another city, I can't remember, in the commerce guidance. But we can provide that clarity for them, and then that'll make its way to you. How we get to the final code.
Okay. Does Commerce have a recommendation on FAR lot coverage usage?
No, they did not. The guidelines just gave examples of different cities within Washington, but they didn't directly say example.
Yeah, when it comes to scale, they wanted to make sure that it's up to each jurisdiction to say, just convert the entire house or half the house or no more than this much square footage. Give that to the local jurisdictions. The intent sections are great. The intent that we built was based off that guidance, and that helps us really lean into, well, we've got a question about what you're proposing to do. We can look at the intent and say, does it still meet the intent? It may not meet exactly one of the listed uses, but the intent is what we hang our hat on for interpreting the code. So,
yeah.
But the scale is definitely something we can formalize, bring some examples to Planning Commission, bring them forward.
I think we need to tinker with
it
to see what comes out of it. Yeah, exactly. So I look forward to that. I think the time frame on that is actually quite exciting. I'm looking forward to being able to engage in those conversations, hear what the Planning Commission says, hear their conversations. So that's great. Okay, I'm going down the list. Parking. Hold on, did I have another question about? Okay, so when it comes to the neighborhood retail, we're talking about changing the lot coverage regulations, but we're also using a lot coverage percentage to define, size of neighborhood retail. So like, how does the potential of changing lot coverage impact our, I don't even know what that stands for anymore. How does that impact neighborhood retail and it's the lot coverages that we're proposing?
Yeah, and that's where it's floor area. It's a percent of the lot area represented in floor area. So if you had a 10,000 square foot lot and we said, okay, it's a 30% floor area maximum for your neighborhood scale commercial, then you've got 3,000 square feet that could be commercial on that lot.
And that's
You could do it
pretty
in,
big
you could
for
do it
retail.
in, you could do it in a 3,000 square foot footprint if you met setbacks. You could do it in a 2-story, 1,500 square foot double tall. Not to exceed that 3,500 square foot maximum. So it's a floor area calculation based on the lot size. Not a lot coverage.
I appreciate that nuance. Okay, cool. Thank you. Because I think that we were hearing lot coverage used in multiple ways. Okay. When it comes to the parking updates, one point that may be evident to those of us at the table, or maybe not, but I see the parking enforcement as meeting an immediate need. Like our community very much says we have an immediate need to address, camping, like not necessarily, but like leaving a car out in a public area for beyond what is written in our code. And so I'm like very much want to see, like my colleagues have said, parking enforcement go forward. I know that that's on a plan and it's coming to us. But the difference is between parking enforcement and building new parking and changing parking like requirements and parking minimums is that we can change parking rules now and feel an immediate effect once those rules go into effect. But when we change parking minimums, it will literally be years before we see even a development bring in new parking, because that's how long it takes to build a building. And so I don't expect us experiencing the impacts of reducing parking minimums quickly. It will just take time. But I do expect that when we start experiencing parking enforcement, we will feel a more immediate effect. And so while I agree with my colleagues that, yes, I want to see parking enforcement before we see a reduction in parking minimums, I think naturally we're going to see that. And I'm glad for it. And so I will be another voice to supporting the removal of outdated, unscientific, kind of like throwing darts at a dartboard parking minimums, and how they have developed over time, so that developers can choose what is most marketable for them. And I look forward to seeing, what that interpretation is. And to Councilmember Dodd's point, if at some point we see it's more common for tenants, renters, condo owners to have to pay for a parking spot, then we will know what the going rate of a parking spot is. And that's probably good for us all. So then moving on down, we sort of touched on it between FAR and lot coverage. But were there some other regulations that made FAR redundant, where we're like, if we're already like, it was almost like just another hoop to jump through because there were other hoops that already kind of solved that problem beforehand? Besides, like, I'm trying to remember a conversation we had several months ago.
So that's probably what I said. Like, we already regulate like every other part of the building envelope completely. So if we're going to micromanage the height and the setbacks and like every other part, like it seems like FAR is silly to add on top of it. It feels like we should just either tell people this is the max FAR, do what you want, or micromanage every other part of the building envelope. So you're probably thinking of
Well, we
what I was
used
saying.
to do that, and we have made a conscious decision here at a study session to say we want to transition more towards FAR rather than form-based code. And so we had done all the micromanagement earlier on, and we said that was too much, that's too complicated. Let's move more towards an FAR model of regulation than setbacks and height limits and everything. But I think we're seeing the overlap in this weird like middle spot, and it's frustrating.
Like I'm fine with one or the other. Like it seems like both is redundant and overly restrictive. Like I could be talked either way.
Can that come back to us, like, clear information so that we know what we're agreeing to? We can see the differences, and like you said, and I think that this works for students, professionals, amateurs like us. Pictures are really good. Like, we all, I think, benefit from seeing an actual, like, real life example, even if it's in photo form. Is that possible?
Yeah, we can expand upon within the materials, and then when we do, if we're going to look at this as part of elimination of a cap with what those impacts would be within the comp plan, within our targets, our housing and commercial targets, we would have to be looking at that. We'd have to be looking at, well, what is the maximum build out potential for the North Creek area, which some of those have very high building height allowances and FARs that have not been realized at this point. So, but they would be potentially doubled or tripled as far as an FAR if somebody went to the setbacks and went vertical.
So it's possible to meet FAR. We just haven't seen it in town yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the Fred Meyer example in the packet, it's maybe 1 million square feet below what the maximum FAR could be. And Planning Commission question came up, and one of the council members identified it's probably because that's just what they build. It's one of their kits, we know what to build, this is what we build, and it's never been let's throw mixed use up above. So that's kind of what we would see in an evaluation of what could the maximum be, where are we now? So it hasn't been a problem. I guess it's really what we're kind of saying is it hasn't been a limiting factor.
It is what they build. So I had a very weird but awesome conversation with two people who work for different retail stores, and they can like name the layout. They're like, this is an urban small and this is a suburban like large store. So it's just like pre-planned, like fit to the site and the region. And it was fascinating for a specific kind of nerd, which is me. But yeah, sorry. I was like, I just had a conversation about that.
And that was a valuable contribution, so thank you. I appreciated it. So you have a quorum. Okay, so based on that conversation, I am in support of the recommendation to defer FAR lot coverage to a future work plan, and I think you're being very generous by saying we could get to it in 2025. I'm perfectly fine if it's something that is on the 2026 docket, and if it comes in the beginning of the year, great. That sounds like you have a good plan, and I support that. And then, the variance criteria, the remainder of like the kind of administrative changes, we're looking good, and I look forward to seeing them come to us in the time frame that you have noted here. And those are my comments. Thank you.
I want to have one more conversation before we gavel. The administrative changes. One of the things in the packet you mentioned was comprehensive plan amendment process changes. First of all, congrats that Commerce gave the seal of approval on our comp plan like 2 weeks ago. Yay! Phew. Hurdle achieved. Now we have to set the standard for how we deal with amendments going forward. And we just received a request, right? And we had the conversation, and I don't think it was like the cleanest amendment request process. And so I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit more about your intent behind changing the code 1118 about amendment process, and what are you looking to achieve by making those changes?
Primarily, it's clarity. So we have to provide for a venue for comprehensive plan as well as zoning code private amendment requests. So we want to make sure that we've laid out a code that is clear, and then we have some procedures and materials that can provide that clarity, because we could get requests from people who are not everyday land use attorneys or developers. We could get them from seasoned folks. We want to make sure it's very, very clear for them. And then it builds into what our internal practices are for when they come to you, when they go to Planning Commission, kind of how we move it through the process, and make sure it's nice and clean and orderly, and we're eliminating any of the confusion, because we had the joint map of everything, one map to rule them all, and we pulled apart the comp plan map and the zoning map. So now we have two different things to look at. We've also created some opportunity within the comprehensive plan map that establishes densities that could be achieved through just a zoning request. They may not need a comp plan request. So we want to make sure that that guidance is very clear, and how we've got it worded is a little confusing. So we just want to make sure we're following best practice, and we can take a look at some of our peer communities and make sure we're up to speed on that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering if, in conjunction with code amendments, you might be developing internally some, or for external audiences, just sort of outreach tools for folks who are interested in, is this a variance? Is this an amendment? Who do I talk to? What's possible? Is that some sort of like communication tool that you'd be looking to develop?
Yeah, we could definitely look into what opportunities we can provide as far as materials and just general support through the permit center, through our current planning staff, long range planning staff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to discuss the current way that we get amendments and how we deliberate on those, but it sounds like clarity is warranted, especially now that we've separated zoning map from comp plan map. So great.
I'll just say thanks for bringing that up. I think, clarity and informational tools, like, just sort of a choose your own adventure kind of guide is going to be really useful. Thank you.
We're adjourned.